Hey everyone, we are back at the Brand Innovators Sports Marketing Summit and Upfronts, our 6th annual iteration of the series here in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm David Teicher, Chief Content Officer, and we are backstage with one of today's speakers. We have Shivram from Uber Eats. We're thrilled to have you with us today.
Thank you, David.
Your main stage session was fantastic, and I appreciate you sitting down with me.
Appreciate it, and a big thank you to Brand Innovators, always hosting amazing events.
Of course, it's what we do. I'm glad you enjoy. So first, before we dive in, tell us a little bit about yourself, your who you are, your world, your remit, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Shivram Vaideeswaran. I lead global delivery marketing at Uber, and that encompasses our Uber Eats and Postmates brands, our brand positioning, brand strategy, as well as execution of our brand in the United States, Canada, and beyond. We also get to build out our global partnerships team, our global media teams, and so much more. And so it's been an amazing ride here. I've been with Uber for about 2 years now.
All right, fantastic. I love it. So we appreciate you being with us. Obviously, there is an endemic reason that you are here. Uber Eats' role within the world of Super Bowl advertising. So I know you spoke a little bit about it on our main stage, but just can you give us some insight into the process and thinking behind the ad and what to expect, and we'll kind of dive into some of the other follow-ups.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing is always going back to what's the right and important opportunity for the business. And I think for us, when we look at the market today, there is a huge change that's happening within the world of delivery, which is you're now starting to see more and more consumers that have jumped into the market starting to build preference and trying to decide, okay, which platform is the one that I want to be able to use, and where am I going to start to build my loyalty? And that gives us the opportunity to start looking at our membership platform, which is Uber One. So for those who aren't familiar, Uber One is our membership that saves you on both mobility and delivery sides of our business, which is very exciting. Understanding the economic impact that's happening out there right now, when you think about the recession, when you think about inflation, people are also looking to save. They don't want to have to change their behaviors when it comes to the world of delivery and what they've been able to build and really get comfortable with in terms of the effortlessness of being able to push a button and have something show up at your door in 30 minutes. But they're much more conscious about the way that they're spending. And so Uber One actually gives you the ability to get free deliveries as well as 10% off your orders and discounts on your rides as well. And so it is actually a very rational purchase for most users on our platform, not just what we would call heavy users or power users. And so the opportunity of the Super Bowl is actually to help educate and drive awareness around that Uber One will save you money. And so that's what our spot is going to be about. And of course, Diddy is helping us write a hit.
Awesome. I love it. And I think you preempted some of the follow-up that we're going to get into in a second.
Yeah.
But we'll dive in. So first, let's talk about just the role that sports marketing plays within the larger, right? Because this is only obviously one day, one ad, but you have 364 days of the year to think of as well beyond this. So what do you think, what does that look like to you? How does this fit in with the larger media and marketing strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think the role of brands today is to drive saliency. It's what we always talk about, which is how do you stay top of mind, especially in a category like ours, which is highly impulse. It's like when you're hungry and you want dinner, we need to be the first app that you open up. And so, hopefully that then moves to when you want to order your groceries, we're the first app that you open up. When you're having friends over and you need to order that bottle of wine, we're the first app that you open up. And so I think having that saliency and top of mind awareness is going to be really important as we continue to grow. What that means is, especially for certain situations like sports, when you're at home watching the game, we want to be top of mind, and that gives you the ability to jump in, especially in a world that is now time shifted for most media. Sports is still something that you're able to watch live. You're still watching with friends, you're at gatherings, and it gives us the ability to hopefully be much more targeted in the way that we communicate our messaging and getting you at a time of purchase, which is something that is really special about the sports world.
So that's a perfect segue into my next question, because I was going to, one of the biggest debates in the industry right now, it's a pretty controversial topic for some, is performance versus brand.
Yeah.
Right? And especially if you're in the D2C space, but even, the big iconic incumbent brands are evolving in this category as well. So I'm curious. The Super Bowl is traditionally thought of as brand awareness, what you were alluding to earlier, and the biggest investment you can make in brand awareness. But how do you think about the performance? How do you measure the effectiveness of your biggest one of potentially the biggest investments that you could make as an advertiser. Are you looking at, you mentioned Uber One and the loyalty, are you looking at loyalty signups? Are you looking at who's ordering right this second because they saw the ad? What do you look at as to say, like, this was successful, this was a worthwhile investment of our money?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing, and I've been talking to a lot of folks in the industry about this, is that surprisingly, I think performance marketing has done a better job branding themselves than brand marketing, right? Because if you say something is performance, that means everything else is not performance. And I think, the role of brand marketing exists because if we did not have brands, you actually wouldn't have something that you could go out there and talk about when it comes to performance marketing. They have to work together. There's a reason why we're wearing things like this, or your watch, or the car that you drive. Like, that is brand. That is not because you saw a performance ad. And so it has to work together in order to be successful. When we think about brand, I think one, you're always looking at your top of funnel metrics. You want to make sure, did we hit our awareness metrics? Like, did we hit our people considering our brand? Are you driving more preference as a part of it, especially as they see advertising? All that will come through when you do all the wonderful brand lift studies and things like that across your channels. So you'll get that piece. I think the second piece we can start to look at is, are you seeing more searches for our Uber One? Are you seeing more searches for Uber Eats that are happening there? Are you seeing more downloads that are starting to come in because of the commercial over the course of the next couple of weeks? It's not going to be always immediate. You have to understand brand takes time. And then you're also able to look at, like, do we start to see more orders? Are we starting to see more trends of signups? Like, all of those pieces start to come into play. But again, marketing is now bifurcated. It's brand, it's performance, you have incentives, you have sales groups. All of that has to come together to tell a story. When you only have one, or you only have another, or another piece of it, you're only getting half of the message.
And I think you hit on a few things. A lot of things, but certainly performance has done a great job at building their own brand. I love that. I'm going to steal that line. I'll credit you with it. Don't worry. But
I'm sure I stole it from someone else. So.
But it's very true, right? Because at the end of the day, all marketing should be performance, right? Like, it's all supposed to do something, Absolutely. Right? It's not just there for no reason. So it all is performance in some way. But no, I think that and I think the other thing is that sometimes things take time, and the world that we've moved into is there's an expectation of instantaneous results or instantaneous change or effect, but sometimes it does take time, especially with these longer plays. So appreciate that. So that actually, again, brings me full circle back to where I was going at the beginning, which you were talking about the saliency and the awareness, and this is the week of cultural relevancy, right? Is one of the biggest terms. I'm curious if you could define what that means to you, and sort of part two is, everybody's chasing cultural relevancy, but do you need it to sell your product? Is that necessary? And that may be a stupid question, but do you need cultural relevance to do what you do?
I think what I would say there is, first, cultural relevancy has to lead itself or start with a cultural insight.
Yes.
You really need to understand who is your target, like, what's going on in their daily lives. What is a challenge or problem that you're solving? And then what's the role that your brand plays? I think, full stop, you've got to start with that. And then the second piece when it comes to culture is really around how you position your product and how you communicate your product. Do I think every brand or every product needs to have cultural relevance? Maybe not. There are probably staples out there and things like that where, I don't know what the cultural relevance is of a, toilet paper or a toothpaste versus others. But there is the role of brand, right? There is brand and there's RTBs and there's benefits to that product that are necessary and important.
Absolutely.
I think for our brand, because we are such an impulse brand and we're also one that starts moving across multiple categories, that cultural relevance actually does play a role. And I think you have to look at it, again, on a market by market basis. What it means to be culturally relevant in America is different than in Japan, is different than in Australia, is different than in Canada. And finding and understanding where your brand can play, as well as how do you make sure that you are integrating into the culture in the right way, versus sometimes trying to be a disruptor in the culture and you actually end up in a place where you piss more people off than opposite, And I think for us, like, found a really good job of that sweet spot here within the United States of being a little bit irreverent. I think being, our mantra is bold, direct, and with heart. I think finding that comedy that's a little bit self-deprecating, but you can, we're still a brand that can have fun with ourselves, which I think is important, but hopefully get our message across in a really relevant and compelling way. And our use of celebrity, of course, has been a great way to jump into and kind of jumpstart that cultural zeitgeist. But it's not always by just finding the biggest celebrity. It's by finding someone that makes really good sense for the message that we're trying to get across.
Absolutely, I love that, right? And to your point, a little bit of that self-deprecation, right? Not taking yourself too seriously, right? You find that sweet spot.
Yeah.
So I love it. So the last big question, I will say, let's talk about, again, this is not the first time you're in the Super Bowl. The world of sports marketing and the role that brands play in sports has evolved, especially thinking about where we were pre-pandemic and the way that people watch sports, people engage with sports, and the role that brands play, creating experiences, creating content. How have you seen that world evolve over the last few years and what it means for brands?
I think sports marketing has now moved into, I would say, 3 different categories that we use across our business. The first is, of course, like media, right? So buying media during big sporting events, live sports, is always, I think, still going to be really important, especially as the role of sports continues to grow across, most markets around the world. We, of course, partner very closely with the NFL here in the United States. We work with Ligue 1 in France and other leagues in regions around the world, and I think that's all really important, and we'll continue to play that role. I think the second piece is going to come in when you start getting to what does the in-stadium experience start to change too, and you're looking at that from not only, I would say, one area, which is the media in-stadium perspective, especially as people are starting to get back out, partnerships with teams and things like that. And then the third piece, I would say, is the in-stadium experience when it comes to technology. And for us, we actually have a program called Uber Live where you can actually go and use your Uber Eats account to order in stadium and skip the line. And you're starting to see that across more stadiums across the country, and we're continuing to build more partnerships there. And so you're looking at how do you educate consumers through media about Uber. How do they start to build that awareness in stadium or with the right partnerships or getting out into the community? And then the third is hopefully now using their technology there as well.
That's fantastic. I mean, you just sold me. I'm like, I don't have to get up and wait in line. Like that's great, right?
Yeah,
you think I've got 12, I've got all of halftime, but then you get there and the line's out the door, and I love it.
Next time you're at Yankee Stadium, just open up Uber Eats.
All right, perfect. I'm in. Okay, so last real question of the day. You got to take this.
All right, I got to take the ball. I'm ready.
Take the ball. Chiefs or Eagles? And we're going to go back after the game and look and see how many people got it right. So
I got to go Chiefs. I like Mahomes, and I'm an NFC East guy, so I don't know if I'm allowed to cheer for the Eagles. I'm just going to be honest.
I'm right there with you.
I know.
I just can't do it. And it's hard to root against Mahomes. It's hard to bet against him. He's magic sometimes.
He's a ton of fun to watch, and I think the Chiefs have had a great run this season. I give a lot of credit to the Eagles. They've done an amazing job, I think, with defying the expectations, especially, and being able to play in a pretty tough conference. But I'm going to go Chiefs.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Shivram. We really appreciate you being here, and hopefully we'll have you back again soon.
Thank you.
All right, awesome.